Imagine a war so devastating it claimed 8 million lives, wiped out entire cities, and cost Europe the equivalent of over $1 trillion today. Yet, chances are you've never even heard of it. This was the 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648. Europe's forgotten apocalypse. Today we'll uncover how religious tensions, ruthless politics, and sheer greed plunged an entire continent into financial ruin, and why the 30 Years' War reshaped the world more than any conflict before the 20th century. It all began with a window in Prague. In May 1618, angry Protestant nobles stormed Prague Castle, confronting Catholic officials they blamed for oppression. Tensions exploded when these nobles threw 2 Catholic envoys out of a high window, a shocking event known today as the defenestration of Prague. Remarkably, they survived the fall by landing in a pile of manure, but peace did not. But the conflict quickly spiraled out of control. Holy Roman Emperor Ferdinand II vowed revenge, rallying Catholic allies. Protestant princes across Germany mobilized armies in response. What started as religious tension swiftly evolved into a ruthless struggle for power, land, and wealth across the European continent. Within months, local disputes turned into full-scale warfare. Entire regions emptied treasuries to raise massive armies, unknowingly setting off a financial disaster on an unprecedented scale. Funding a war lasting 3 decades was no simple task. Armies numbering tens of thousands required staggering sums. To pay their troops, European kings took desperate measures, imposing brutal taxes, seizing church property, and plunging their kingdoms into massive debt. Enter Europe's richest banking families, the Fugger family from Augsburg and the Genoese bankers. They lent astronomical amounts of money to kings and emperors, often at crushing interest rates of 25% or more. Kingdoms like Spain and Austria mortgaged their economies for generations, fueling the flames of conflict. But even loans weren't enough. Armies turned to looting the very people they claimed to protect. Villages were repeatedly pillaged, crops burned, cattle slaughtered. Civilians paid protection money to avoid violence, impoverishing entire regions. Wealth evaporated overnight. Economies collapsed, creating widespread famine. Meet Alrech von Valenstein, Europe's richest and most feared warlord. Born a minor noble, Valenstein seized his chance in the chaos, assembling an enormous private army of mercenaries, over 100,000 soldiers, loyal only to him. Cities and principalities paid Wallenstein colossal sums to spare them. In today's terms, historians estimate he personally amassed wealth equivalent to over $400 billion. He built lavish palaces, owned vast estates, and even minted his own coins. At one point, Wallenstein personally funded the imperial army, making him richer and more powerful than many European kings. But his wealth and ambition soon terrified even his allies. Emperor Ferdinand II, paranoid about Wallenstein's growing power, arranged his assassination in 1634. Wallenstein's dramatic death marked the height of war profiteering, but by then, the economic damage to Europe was irreversible. By the war's final decade, Europe's economy had been utterly shattered. Central Europe, especially Germany, suffered catastrophic losses. Entire cities were abandoned, trade networks completely broke down, and farmland was left barren. Germany's population plunged by at least 25%, with some areas losing over half their inhabitants. Economic output fell by more than 60%. Crops went unplanted, livestock vanished, infrastructure collapsed. In modern terms, this economic devastation was valued at well over $1 trillion. For decades after, Germany was synonymous with poverty and chaos. The war had destroyed the economic foundation of the Holy Roman Empire, leaving scars visible for centuries. Recovery was slow, uneven, and painful, permanently shifting Europe's economic power westward to countries like England and France. The 30 Years' War reshaped Europe economically, socially, and politically. Entire regions remained economically depressed for generations, altering Europe's future trajectory and influencing conflicts centuries later. So next time you wonder why European politics, borders, and economies evolved the way they did, remember the forgotten $1 trillion war that nearly destroyed a continent. The 30 Years' War wasn't just history. It was Europe's first lesson that some wars are simply too expensive to fight. If you enjoyed uncovering this forgotten financial disaster, hit like, subscribe, and tell us, which overlooked historical event should we cover next? Until next time.